She clinked her glass and smiled wide. "Everyone, this is Nathan," she said, hand lightly touching my shoulder. "My roommate." Roommate. The word landed like a brick in my chest. I didn't flinch, didn't say a word, just nodded at the circle of well-dressed strangers in that rented rooftop bar in Midtown. People I'd never met, but who clearly mattered more to her than I ever did. She laughed and turned back to the group, talking about some pitch she'd nailed last week. Meanwhile, I stood there, invisible. Not a boyfriend, not a fiancé, not even a name with weight, just a logistical footnote. I sipped my drink, let the burn settle in, and studied her like a stranger. The gold dress, the designer heels, the curated laugh. This wasn't the woman I built a life with. This was someone else. Someone I no longer recognized. The story didn't start there, obviously. That was just the moment I knew it was over. Let's rewind. Her name was Olivia. We met 5 years ago. Co-working space downtown. She spilled coffee on my laptop, offered to buy me a new one, and somehow we ended up at a sushi bar laughing like old friends. We moved fast after that. Shared bills. Leased a condo together. Slept shoulder to shoulder. Built habits and holidays and a rhythm that felt permanent. I supported her through everything. Her startup, her panic attacks, the year she didn't make rent, and I covered the difference without saying a word. I was the safe one. The reliable one. The background music to her chaos. Then things changed. Subtle at first. She stopped tagging me in photos. Introduced me as Nate instead of my boyfriend. Started spending weekends in the Hamptons for work. I didn't push. I waited. Then came the invitation to the rooftop launch party. Her friend Lara's PR firm celebrating some new crypto retail crossover brand I couldn't care less about. But Olivia insisted. Said it was important. Said, just come. Look good. Be cool. So I went. I wore the suit she bought me for my last birthday. The one with the navy lining, she said, brought out my eyes. I stood beside her like a mannequin, holding drinks, smiling at people who didn't bother remembering my name. And then came the moment. The roommate line. Offhand, casual. Practiced. It wasn't a slip. It was a choice. She was rewriting the story, erasing me one detail at a time. After she turned away, I stayed silent. For the rest of the night, I kept playing the part. I mingled, laughed at jokes, poured champagne like it didn't matter. But inside, I was counting every breath. By 10:43 p.m., I had all I needed. I left quietly. No scene. No fight. The next morning, while she was still asleep, I started executing the plan I'd been quietly assembling for months. Step 1: legal. The lease was in my name. The utilities. The furniture. Everything that made that condo feel like home, mine. I drafted the termination notice, effective immediately. I wasn't kicking her out. I was removing myself. Step 2: digital. I locked down my cloud, my passwords, my finances. Every shared subscription, every auto payment, every access point, cut. Step 3: documentation. I'd been tracking things since last December. Photos, screenshots, messages that didn't belong to me. Venmo transactions labeled with heart emojis sent to names I never heard in our apartment. Nothing explosive, but damning in aggregate. I didn't need proof for court. I needed clarity for myself. That afternoon, I had lunch with our mutual friend, Jules. Casual place. Corner booth. Halfway through the burger, I told her the truth. Liv introduced me as her roommate last night, I said. Jules paused, wiped her mouth, and said, "Yeah, she's been doing that for a while." There it was. She didn't flinch, didn't apologize, just confirmed what I already knew. Olivia had moved on long before I ever left the room. She's been seeing someone, Jules added, voice low. A guy from that crypto firm. His name's Marcus. I nodded. The name meant nothing. Just another temporary upgrade in her constant search for more. More money, more status, more attention. That night, I didn't go home. I checked into a hotel 3 blocks from our condo. Watched the lights flicker in our shared living room from the 18th floor. I imagined her inside, pacing barefoot, wondering if I was working late. Maybe she'd text. Maybe she wouldn't. She didn't. The next day, I sent the email. Subject: notice. Short. Professional. Cold. By the time she read it, I'd already filed the address change and redirected my mail. That Friday, she came home to an empty closet and a blank key fob. She called once. I didn't pick up. Then came the texts. "We need to talk. Why are you being dramatic? Nate, come on. I didn't mean it like that. I didn't reply. Saturday evening, I showed up at another party. Lara's again. This time, hosted in a private gallery space in Soho. I didn't get invited, but I didn't need an invitation. I had leverage. When Olivia saw me, her face flickered. Not with guilt. With calculation. She walked over, glass in hand. Nathan, what the hell? I cut her off. This is where it happened. This is where everything turned. She stood there in front of me, gold earrings catching the gallery lights, voice tight behind her teeth. Nathan, what the hell are you doing here? I looked past her like she was furniture, nodding at a man behind her shoulder. Lara's investor. A guy I'd met once during Olivia's brief obsession with NFTs. Then I turned to her. You introduced me as your roommate, I said. Thought I'd act the part. Roommates show up uninvited all the time. Her expression cracked for half a second. Then that polished mask snapped back on. This isn't the place, she whispered. No, I said. It's perfect. I motioned for the bartender and took another glass of champagne, didn't offer her one. She followed me as I drifted through the room, casual, composed. People were already noticing. She tried to smile through it, gripping my elbow like that could still control me. Look, she hissed. I didn't mean it like that. I was under pressure. No, I cut her off. You meant it exactly like that. You've been meaning it for months. She flinched. Marcus, I said. That the name you use when you forget I'm not deaf? Or is that just what you call me when I'm not home? Her mouth opened, shut, then opened again. Who told you? I smiled. You did. I didn't wait for her to catch up. I just walked. The next hour, I spent working the room. Not to network, not to socialize, but to deliver precision. I started with Lara. Hey, just a heads up, I said. Might want to check who Olivia's been forwarding your campaign briefs to. Some of your pitch decks showed up in a proposal from C7 Media, Marcus's firm. Could be coincidence, but probably isn't. Lara's face dropped. Are you serious? Deadly. Then I moved to Anthony, the gallery's owner, and more importantly, the guy who'd just invested 6 figures into Olivia's startup rebrand. I handed him a manila envelope. Real documents. Olivia's firm hadn't filed its tax forms properly in over a year. It was enough to scare a cautious investor off permanently. He thanked me with a handshake. No questions asked. By 10:15 p.m., the whispers had started. Olivia felt it. I watched her spiral, moving through the crowd like she was trying to plug leaks on a sinking ship. She caught me by the restroom hallway. You're trying to ruin me, she said, voice hoarse. No, I said calmly. I'm just correcting the record. She scoffed, eyes darting, cornered. You can't just show up and do this. I stepped closer, lowered my voice. You introduced me as your roommate. That's what you reduced me to after 5 years of building your business, managing your credit score, covering your ass every time a vendor threatened to sue. I leaned in. You erased me. So I erased your margin for error. She blinked fast. You're a psycho. I shrugged. You shouldn't have underestimated the guy willing to stay invisible for this long. Then I left. Outside, the air bit cold. The kind that clears your head and cuts through the last fog of sentiment. I walked 3 blocks to a quiet bar I knew, ordered bourbon neat, and turned off my phone. The next morning, everything unraveled for her. Lara called to freeze the joint campaigns. Anthony pulled out of the rebrand funding. Her company's accountant resigned, citing concerns of ethical mismanagement. Olivia's inbox lit up like a Christmas tree with missed calls, panicked texts, and appointment cancellations. And Marcus? He ghosted, took the hint, and vanished before Olivia could even ask for help. I wasn't watching it unfold out of spite. I was documenting it. There's a difference. By Monday, Olivia was sitting in front of our former building's doorman, trying to argue her way inside. She didn't know the passcode had changed. She didn't know the mail was redirected. She didn't know the doorman had strict instructions to deny access to unauthorized visitors. She called me again. 4 times. I didn't pick up. On Wednesday, I emailed her a final message. Olivia, as of last Friday, all shared accounts have been closed or reassigned. Your personal items have been boxed and left with building management. You can schedule pickup through them. No further contact is necessary. I suggest you review your NDAs before discussing anything about our former life together with third parties. Best, Nathan. Her reply was long, apologetic, full of deflection and false accountability. She wanted to meet. She wanted to talk. She used words like confused and misunderstood, and pressure. I responded with silence. Because the thing about silence is, it isn't passive. It's a wall you build brick by brick, until they realize too late that there's no door left. A week later, I heard through Jules that Olivia had lost 2 clients and was under review by the PR Council for ethical violations tied to proprietary information leaks. She was flailing, alone, without a roommate to keep the lights on. And me? I was already gone. But I wasn't finished. 2 months later, I watched Olivia walk into the same building she used to call home, but this time as a guest, not a resident. Her heels clicked on the tile too loudly, nerves disguised as confidence. She wore black, always her armor when she needed to look in control. She had no idea what this meeting was really about. She thought she was pitching a new client, a mid-sized agency with decent funding, trying to reposition their brand for luxury markets. The invite came through Jules, who, after everything, agreed to help me with the final move. Olivia thought she was getting a second chance. She didn't know I owned the agency. She didn't know the brand she was pitching used shell corporations I controlled, that every decision she'd made in the last 90 days had been anticipated and leveraged. Every call, every hire, every name she dropped to land this room, I had put there. She stepped into the conference room. I was already seated. Her face froze. Nathan. I nodded. Miss Reed. She laughed, confused. You're with them? I am them. I let that hang in the air. Watched her shoulders drop slightly as the truth hit. This is your agency? She asked, already knowing the answer. I leaned back in the chair, steepling my hands. It was never about owning it, just about making sure you couldn't. There was silence. She looked around the room, realizing suddenly that every friendly smile was a mask, every name a plant. I'd orchestrated the entire illusion. She swallowed hard. Why are you doing this? I tilted my head. Because you needed to understand that rewriting someone out of your life doesn't erase what they built with you. It just means you inherit the weight alone. You said nothing. You just vanished. I said nothing, I agreed. Because I wanted you to think I'd surrendered, that I was licking my wounds somewhere, devastated. That was the miscalculation. She sat, slowly, her voice more controlled now. So what happens now? You ruin every opportunity one chase. No, I said. I'm done chasing. I've reclaimed what you took. The leverage. The silence. The truth. I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder. She didn't take it. Your resignation, I said. From a company you'll never work with again. Signed already. Just a formality. She stared at it, lips tight. I won't sign that. You already did, I said. 6 months ago, you granted blanket content rights to all derivative projects tied to prior collaborative work, remember? We own every pitch deck you've touched since June. This isn't vengeance. It's just paperwork. Olivia stood. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just looked at me like she was finally seeing me. Not the man who waited in her shadows. Not the man who paid bills while she smiled for photos. But the one who left quietly and returned with every piece of the game already decided. You really think this makes you better than me? She asked. No, I said. I think it makes me free. She left without another word. I never saw her again. Jules called that night. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. She did, I said. She saw the man she buried and realized he didn't stay dead. I moved cities a month later. New skyline, new routines. I kept my name this time. Because power isn't just about erasing someone. It's about knowing when to reclaim your own name and letting it carry weight again. No revenge posts. No exposés. Just quiet precision. Roommate? No. I was the architect, and she was just another occupant in a house I designed, but no longer lived in.